Sir, that's a pretty expensive bike. Where'd you get it?
My dad bought it.
Yeah, because bikes like this get stolen all the time, and it's usually kids like you riding them.
Officer, that's my son's bike.
Then explain why your kid's riding a bike that was reported stolen.
I didn't steal anything.
Then we're going to figure out where it really came from.
Body cam captures the moment suspicion turns into accusation. Not during a chase. Not during a robbery. But in the middle of a quiet neighborhood park, directed at a 6-year-old child. Late afternoon sunlight spreads across the small community park at the edge of the neighborhood. The kind of park where parents bring their kids after school, where dogs chase tennis balls across the grass, where bikes lean against benches while children run between the playground and the walking paths. It's peaceful, routine, normal. A basketball bounces somewhere in the distance. A mother pushes a toddler on the swings. 2 teenagers sit on a picnic table scrolling through their phones. Nothing about the scene looks dangerous. Nothing about it looks suspicious. Except, in the center of the paved walking path near the playground, a little boy rides slowly on a bright red bicycle. He can't be older than 6. Small helmet slightly crooked on his head. Tiny sneakers pushing the pedals as he carefully circles the path. The training wheels rattle softly against the pavement each time he turns. Behind him, on a nearby bench, sits a man in his mid-30s. Tall, relaxed posture, dark hoodie and jeans. Watching the boy with a quiet smile every time the kid completes another careful lap around the path. Every few seconds the boy glances back. "Dad, look." The man nods. "I see you, buddy." The kid beams with pride and pedals a little faster. It's one of those simple moments parents live for. A child learning to ride a bike. Confidence growing one wobble at a time. But at the edge of the park, a patrol cruiser rolls slowly past the entrance. The body camera activates automatically as the officer opens his door. Boots hit gravel. The camera shakes slightly as he steps out and scans the park. At first, his attention moves across the playground, the swings, the basketball court. Then, his eyes lock onto the little boy on the bicycle. The officer stops walking, watching. The boy circles the path again, laughing quietly to himself as the training wheels bump against the pavement. The officer mutters under his breath, "Yeah, that doesn't look right." He steps off the gravel path and begins walking toward the child. Each step slow, deliberate. The body cam tilts slightly as he approaches. The boy doesn't notice him at first. He's too busy concentrating on steering. But the officer raises his voice sharply. "Hey!" The boy brakes suddenly. Training wheels scrape loudly against the pavement. The little kid looks up. Confused, the officer points directly at the bicycle. "Where did you get that bike?" The boy blinks. "My bike?" "Yeah, your bike." The boy nods slowly. "My dad got it for me." The officer scoffs immediately. "Yeah, right." The boy looks confused now. His small hands grip the handlebars tighter. The officer steps closer, close enough that the body cam fills with the image of the red bicycle. "You know we had a bike reported stolen around here?" The boy's voice is tiny. "I didn't steal it." The officer tilts his head. "Then how'd you get it?" "My dad bought it." The officer looks him up and down, then laughs quietly. "Yeah, I don't think so." The boy glances nervously toward the bench. "Dad?" Before the father can even stand, the officer keeps talking. "You expect me to believe a kid like you just got handed a brand new bike?" The father stands now, walking toward them calmly. "Officer, what's going on?" The officer doesn't even look at him at first. He keeps his eyes on the child. "You steal this bike from somewhere?" The boy shakes his head quickly. "No. You better tell the truth." "I am." The father reaches them now, standing beside his son. "That's his bike," he says calmly. "I bought it for him." The officer finally turns his head, slowly, looking the father up and down, suspicion immediately replacing any sense of normal conversation. "You his dad?" "Yes." "You bought this bike?" "Yes." The officer crosses his arms. "From where?" "A store." "What store?" "Target." The officer laughs. "Yeah, okay." The father's tone stays calm. "Is there a problem?" The officer points toward the bike again. We had a report of a stolen bicycle matching that description. The father gestures toward the training wheels. He's 6 years old. That doesn't mean anything. The officer crouches slightly toward the boy again. You sure you didn't take this from somebody's yard? The boy shakes his head harder now. No. Before we go any further, comment where you're watching from. Let's see how far this documentary travels. Because what happens next isn't just an officer asking questions. It's the moment assumption turns into something far worse. The officer stands again, looking between the child and his father. You know something doesn't add up. What doesn't add up? The father asks. The officer gestures toward the boy. Kids like him don't usually ride bikes like this. The father's My experience is catching thieves before they get away. The officer grabs his radio. Dispatch, I've got a possible stolen bicycle recovery at the park. The boy looks up suddenly. I didn't steal anything. The officer keeps talking into the radio. Male juvenile, about 6 years old. The father shakes his head. You're unbelievable. The officer lowers the radio and looks back at him. You want to keep interfering? I'm protecting my son. You're obstructing an investigation. The father laughs once. Short. In disbelief. You're threatening to arrest a parent because he told you to stop grabbing his kid? The officer's voice grows colder. You better watch your tone. My tone? Yes. You're the one accusing my child. The officer crouches again toward the boy. Listen carefully. The boy sniffles. You tell me where you got this bike. My dad bought it. The officer shakes his head. Wrong answer. The father steps forward again. That's enough. The officer stands instantly. You want to step back right now? I'm not stepping anywhere. The officer's hand moves toward his belt. Don't make this worse. The father's voice drops lower. You already made it worse. The officer points directly at him. You see this right here? He gestures to the crying child. This is what happens when people like you think you can just take things that don't belong to you. The father's patience finally cracks slightly. My son didn't take anything. That's what you keep saying. Because it's true. The officer shakes his head. You know what? What? I think both of you are coming with me. The father stares at him. You're arresting a 6-year-old? I'm detaining him. For what? Possession of stolen property. The father laughs again in disbelief. Possession? The officer grabs the boy's arm again. We'll sort it out at the station. The boy cries loudly now. Dad! The father steps directly between them. You're not taking him anywhere. The officer's voice rises. Step aside. No. Step aside now. No. The officer's radio crackles slightly as someone speaks in the background. But the officer doesn't hear it, because now his attention is fully on the father. You want to turn this into a bigger problem? You already did that. How? You grabbed the child. I detained a suspect. The father shakes his head slowly. You really believe that? The officer points again. That bike was reported stolen. Then check the serial number. We will. Right here. The officer hesitates, just for a moment. The father kneels beside the bike and points under the frame. There. The officer bends slightly. But instead of checking it, he straightens again. We'll do that at the station. No, the father says firmly. You'll do it here. The officer steps forward again. You don't give orders here. The father meets his eyes calmly. Neither do you. The officer stares at him for several seconds. The tension in the park is completely shifted now. People are openly watching. Phones are out. Recording. The boy clutches his father's leg, still crying. And the officer still believes he's stopping a crime. Still believes he caught a thief. But what he doesn't realize is that the man standing in front of him, the man he's threatening, the man he's just accused of raising a criminal child, is not just a random parent at the park. And in just a few moments, when the truth finally comes out, this entire situation is going to turn against him. The tension in the park has completely shifted. Phones are out. Parents who were watching their kids on the swings are now watching the confrontation instead. Two teenagers on the bench have their cameras pointed directly at the officer, because something about the scene feels wrong. A grown officer, arguing with a father, while gripping the arm of a crying 6-year-old. The little boy clings tightly to his father's leg now, tears running down his cheeks. "Dad, I didn't steal it." "I know you didn't," the father says softly. The officer rolls his eyes. "Of course you'd say that." The father looks back at him. "You're scaring him." "He should be scared," the officer replies coldly. "If he stole something." "He didn't." "That's what you keep saying." "Because it's true." The officer gestures toward the red bicycle again. "That bike was reported stolen." "Then run the serial number." "We'll do that at the station." "You're not taking a 6-year-old to a police station over a bike." The officer steps closer again. "You don't get to tell me how to do my job." The father's voice stays calm. "You're not doing your job." The officer laughs. "Oh yeah?" "Yes." "What am I doing then?" "Profiling." The word hangs there. Heavy. The officer shakes his head immediately. "You people always say that." "You people again?" "You heard me." The officer gestures toward the boy. "Kids like him don't usually show up riding brand new bikes unless something shady happened." "That's racist." "No," the officer snaps. "That's reality." The father looks around the park for a moment. People watching. Phones recording. Then he looks back at the officer. "You're accusing a 6-year-old of theft because of how he looks." "I'm accusing him because that bike was reported stolen." "Then verify it." "We will." "Right here." The officer's jaw tightens. "You're really starting to get on my nerves." "And you grab my son." The officer points at him again. "You keep talking like you're in charge." "I'm protecting my child." "You're interfering with an investigation." The father sighs slowly. "This is unbelievable." The officer gestures toward the boy again. "You know what the real problem is?" "What?" "Your type always acts shocked when we catch you." "My type?" "You heard me." The officer leans down slightly toward the child again. "You want to tell the truth now?" The boy shakes his head quickly. "I didn't steal it." The officer straightens again. "Yeah, we'll see about that." The father steps forward slightly. "That's enough." The officer immediately points at him. "Step back." "No." "Step back now." "No." The officer's hand moves closer to his radio. "You're about 2 seconds away from being detained, too." "For what?" "Obstruction." "For standing next to my son." "For interfering." The father shakes his head slowly. "You really want to go down that road?" The officer smirks. "Oh yeah." "Fine." The father reaches slowly into his pocket. The officer reacts instantly. "Hey, hands where I can see them." The father stops. "I'm grabbing my wallet." Slow. The body camera tilts slightly as the officer shifts his stance. Parents nearby step even closer now, because the tension is obvious. The father pulls out a leather wallet slowly. He opens it, then flips it around, holding it up. The officer squints at it. "What is that?" "Identification." "I didn't ask for ID." "You should look anyway." The officer hesitates, then steps closer. The camera zooms slightly as he leans in. The badge inside the wallet catches the sunlight. Gold. The officer's expression changes slightly. "What is that supposed to be?" The father holds the badge steady. "Read it." The officer leans closer, and for the first time since the confrontation started, his confidence disappears. Because the badge doesn't say detective. It doesn't say officer. It says something much bigger. Chief of Police. The officer blinks. Once. Then again. "You're kidding." The father closes the wallet slowly. "No." The officer looks between him and the crying child. "You're the chief." "Yes." The entire park goes silent. Phones still recording. Parents whispering. Because the moment everyone expected has finally arrived. The officer just accused the police chief's 6-year-old son of stealing a bicycle. The officer clears his throat. Well, that would have been useful information earlier. The father stares at him. You didn't ask. You could have said something. I tried. The officer gestures awkwardly. You said you bought the bike. Yes. You didn't say who you were. That shouldn't matter. The words land harder than anything else. Why not? The officer asks defensively. Because my son shouldn't need a police chief for a father to ride his bike in a park. Silence. Heavy silence. The officer glances at the body camera on his chest. Still blinking. Still recording. Every word. Every accusation. Every your type. Every your kind. The father gestures toward the crying child. You grabbed a 6-year-old. I was investigating. You accused him of stealing. It matched a report. You said kids like him don't ride bikes like that. The officer says nothing. Because he knows that line is on camera. The father kneels beside his son. It's okay, buddy. The boy wipes his eyes. He thought I stole it. I know. The father stands again, looking directly at the officer. You didn't check the serial number. We were going to. You didn't ask for proof of purchase. We were getting there. You grabbed a child. The officer shifts uncomfortably. You're blowing this out of proportion. The father's eyes narrow slightly. Am I? The officer glances around. More phones, more witnesses, and one blinking red body camera. Still recording everything. Because now the power has completely shifted. 10 minutes ago, the officer thought he had caught a thief. Now, he's standing in front of the police chief explaining why he detained a 6-year-old. The father picks up the red bicycle gently, then looks back at the officer. You said people like my son don't ride bikes like this. The officer says nothing. You said my type steals them. Still silence. The father nods slowly. Good thing you were wearing that camera. The officer looks down at it instinctively. For the first time, he looks nervous. And if you're enjoying this documentary so far, like and subscribe. Because what happens next doesn't just expose one officer's mistake. It shows exactly what accountability looks like when the camera never stops recording. The officer keeps staring at the body camera on his chest. That small blinking red light. 10 minutes ago it meant proof he was doing his job. Now, it's evidence. Evidence of every accusation. Every word. Every time he said your type. Every moment he grabbed a crying 6-year-old. The park is silent now. Parents who were pushing swings are standing still. Kids who were playing basketball have stopped. And nearly everyone is recording. Phones pointed directly at the officer. The police chief looks at him calmly. You said this bike was reported stolen. The officer nods weakly. Yes. Let's confirm that. The officer keys his radio. Dispatch, confirm bicycle theft report at Oak Ridge Park. Static crackles. A few seconds pass. Then dispatch answers. Unit 24. Negative. The officer frowns. Negative what? We have no stolen bicycle reports in that area today. The entire park hears it. The chief nods slowly. So there was never a stolen bike. The officer lowers the radio. It matched the description. What description? The chief asks. Red bike. The chief gestures toward the park. There are 6 red bikes in this park. The officer says nothing. The chief continues. You stopped the 6-year-old. Silence. You accused him of theft. Silence. You grabbed his arm. Silence. And you used racial language. The officer shifts uncomfortably. I was investigating. The chief shakes his head. No. What? You were making assumptions. The officer glances around. Parents staring. Phones recording. And the body cam blinking. Still capturing everything. The chief kneels beside his son. You okay, buddy? The little boy nods weakly. He thought I stole my bike. I know. The chief wipes the tears from his face. Or, go ride again. The boy hesitates. then slowly pedals away. Training wheels rattling softly again as he circles the path. The moment should feel normal again. But the atmosphere has changed. Because everyone knows what just happened. The chief stands and faces the officer again. You said kids like him don't ride bikes like that. The officer looks down. You said your type steals things. The officer rubs the back of his neck. I didn't mean to... It's on camera. The officer looks instinctively at the blinking red light. Still recording. The chief folds his arms. That footage will be reviewed tonight. The officer's voice lowers. You don't have to escalate this. I don't? No. The chief's tone becomes colder now. You grabbed my child. I thought... You accused him of stealing. I was responding to a call. There was no call. The officer swallows. The chief continues calmly. You detained a minor without cause. You used racial language. You attempted to seize property without verification. The officer finally asks the question he's afraid to hear. What happens now? The chief answers plainly. You're suspended effective immediately. The officer's shoulders drop. But the chief isn't finished. Internal Affairs will investigate the body cam footage. The officer nods slowly. And depending on the findings, you could face termination. The officer's face tightens. But the chief adds something worse. And that's just the department side. The officer looks up. What do you mean? The chief gestures toward the park. All the witnesses. All the phones. All of this is evidence. The officer's voice becomes quiet. You're filing a complaint? The chief shakes his head slightly. No. What then? A civil rights lawsuit. The officer freezes. You're suing the department? I'm suing the city. The chief's voice stays calm. But the words are heavy. You unlawfully detained a child. You used discriminatory language. You caused emotional distress to a minor. The officer stares at him. The chief continues. My attorneys will file a federal civil rights claim. The officer whispers, How much? The chief answers without hesitation. 1 million. The number spreads through the park like electricity. Parents whisper. Phones zoom in. Because this is no longer just a mistake. It's a career-ending moment. The chief looks directly at the officer. Everything you said is recorded. The officer glances at the body cam again. You said you're kind. Silence. You said people like him steal bikes. Silence. You grabbed a 6-year-old. Silence. And the camera never stopped recording. The officer's voice is barely audible now. I didn't think... That's the problem. The chief gestures toward the playground. My son should be able to ride his bike in a park. The officer says nothing. He shouldn't need a police chief for a father to feel safe doing it. The officer stares at the ground. Because now he understands something. This moment. Captured on body cam. Captured on phones. Captured by witnesses. Is not going away. The chief kneels briefly beside the bicycle again. Then stands. Across the park, the little boy rides another slow lap. Training wheels rattling. Confidence slowly returning. Life moving forward. But behind him, an officer's career is collapsing. Bias doesn't always destroy a career immediately. But sooner or later, the consequences arrive. And when that camera keeps recording, the truth always wins. The end.